Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Insyirah Ilmiah binti Saudi. I'm from the HI5C. My ID number is BMH2207067. And now I will present about HLC manual individual presentation for course 2533. So, there are two contents of the presentation. The first one is the steps of identifying halal control point, and the second one is halal control point risk management plan summary for the company. So, before we go through our contents, we need to know what is halal control point first. So, what is halal control point? Halal control point is actually a specific stage in the production, processing, handling or distribution of product to ensure compliance with Sharia. In the context of halal certification and compliance, these control points are critical locations or steps where measures are implemented to ensure that the products adhere to halal requirements. There are a lot of halal control point stages in industry. For example, sourcing of raw materials, processing, cleaning and sanitation, storage, and the last one is distribution. Now, we go to the first content of the presentation, which is how to identify halal control point. There are 5 steps in identifying halal control point, which are: firstly, identify the process flow; secondly, analyze the 4 types of halal tracks; thirdly, identify halal Thayyibah control point ranking; fourthly, identify halal control point severity or impact ranking; and the last one is make a decision rules for risk ranking. Now, let's move to the first step, which is identify the process flow. In this step, we need to evaluate the entire production process based on process flow from start to finish, including sourcing of ingredients, manufacturing, process, packaging, storage, transportation, and distribution. From all of these steps, we need to identify which process that might affect the halal integrity of the product. Now, let's move to the second step, which is analyze the 4 types of halal threats. Before we go to example of halal threats, we need to know what does it mean by the halal threat itself. First, halal threats refer to the risk of challenges that may compromise the integrity of halal products. These threats can arise at various stages of the production, processing, or distribution. There are 4 types of halal threats. The first one is material. For example, material can be halal threats when it comes from non-halal ingredients, when it contaminated with non-halal ingredients during processing stage, and also when it has incorrectly labeled materials. Next, people can also be halal threats when it has poor hygiene practices, when it has unauthorized access, such as they enter the certain area without the permission, and also when it has lack of training, such as lack of knowledge about halal integrity. Next, machine or equipment can also be halal threats when it has cross-contamination. For example, when the workers use the machine that had been used for non-halal products before without performing sertup, then machine can also be halal threats when it has lack of maintenance. For example, machines that are not properly maintained may compromise halal integrity. The last halal threat is environment. The environment can also be halal threats. For example, when the premise has a presence of non-halal substances in premise area. Next, environment can also be halal threats when the premise has pest infestation. It is because presence of pests can lead to product spoilage and can also spread diseases. Next, environment can also be halal threats when it has improper waste management. It is because it can lead to pest infestation and it occur when the workers did not obey the scheduling of waste management properly. The next step of identifying halal control point is halalan toyiban control point likelihood ranking. This ranking may vary depending on factors such as the nature of the raw materials, the complexity of the supply chain, and the effectiveness of control measures in place. There are three rankings of likelihood. The first one is likely. Likelihood for likely is involving the situation that common or repeated many times. The halalan toyiban status affected expected to occur. Next, likelihood of moderate. This is involving the situation that expected to occur or happen before. Halalan toyiban status affected for this ranking might occur sometimes. The last one is likelihood of unlikely. This ranking is involving the situation that practically impossible. Halalan toyiban status affected could occur in exceptional circumstances. Now we move to halalan control point severity or impact ranking. Before that, what does it mean by this table? This table is actually tell us that how far the failure at halal control point status could affect the halal status. This table is divided into three impacts, which are critical, moderate, and insignificant. If the situation occurs damage the consumer confidence in product's halal status or the brand's reputation and halal status cannot be salvaged, this situation will classify as a critical impact. Secondly, if the situation occurs damage the consumer confidence in product's halal status or the brand's reputation, but halal status can be salvaged, it is classified as a moderate impact. Lastly, if the failure of halal control point not give impact to halal status, it classified as a insignificant impact. Now, we move to the halal control point risk matrix. For this table, we need to pairing the likelihood and the impact to get the ranking levels of halal control point. For example, if we pair impact of critical with the likelihood of moderate, the ranking level that we get is 8. Now, we move to the last steps in identifying halal control points, which is make a decision rules for risk ranking. After we get the ranking levels from metric table just now, we need to come out with the code number and the decision for control measure. As we know, if the ranking levels are 7, 8, and 9, they will classify as a halal control point. For example, in this table, we can see if we pairing a likelihood of likely and impact of critical, we will get the ranking level 9. The code for this ranking level is high, and the control measure, which is the action that we need to take to prevent this issue, is the organizations need to review the incident in a detailed manner to find the root cause of the problem. Apart from that, we also have code significant for 7 and 8 ranking, moderate for ranking 4 until 6, and low for ranking 1 until 3. Remember, from all of this, we need to come out with the decision to prevent it from occurring. Now, we move to halal control point analysis spreadsheet that we need to apply in Has manual. As you guys can see, here is example of halal control point in our company which is involved in receiving process. Here we have list of potential contaminant, or we call it as a halal threats that we already learned before. Here we have 4 halal threats which are people, material, machine, and environment. Let's take an example. Halal threats machine. The packaging machine use a lubricant that made from haram sources. Then, inclusion for it, or we call it as an effect from the machine, it may cause the contamination to finished product. Next, the likelihood the situation occur is unlikely, and the impact of the situation we classify it as a critical. Next, if we pair this likelihood and the impact, we will get the ranking 6, which is not a halal control point because halal control point is only involving the ranking 7 until 9, like I have said before. Lastly, the control measure that we must take is we need to ensure that we will only purchase the lubricant for the machine from halal sources only. Now, we move to the second contents of presentation, which is halal control point risk management plan summary. In this part, we need to identify which halal control point number is involved, which process involves, what parameter to be monitored, how the method to be monitored, when the required frequency to be monitored, where the location to conduct monitor, and who responsible person to monitor the process. After that, we need to do the corrective action for the halal control point and have a record for it. And here, as you guys can see, this is halal risk management plan summary for our company. Halal control point that involved in the process is halal control point number 1. The process involved is receiving raw material process. What parameter involved in this process is non-halal material received together with halal material. How we identify the parameter? We identify the parameter by visual inspection. Found presence of non-halal material in loading bay. We found porcine. And when we identify the parameter, we identify the parameter during the transportation inspection at loading bay. Where the process take place. The process takes place is at the receiving area, or we call it as a loading bay, and the responsible person that monitor the process is halal executive, purchaser, and also QC. And corrective action that we make is do not upload the consignment, collect the information regarding consignment, inform the IHC, issue SCAR, and also issue the NCR. The records that we take here is supplier corrective action request, or we call it as a SCAR, and also NCR, non-conformant reports.